Hi everyone, my name is Osha Rambad. I'm going to be discussing chapter 12, which is about drug use. So, chapter 12 starts off by giving the readers some myths and some realities about drug use, which I thought was actually really interesting and intriguing and a good way to start off the chapter because a lot of the things that I personally read from these myths and realities, I thought one way and it taught me the reality of it. So I'll start off by giving a few examples of those from the text. So the first one is legal drugs such as alcoholic beverages and tobacco cigarettes are less dangerous than illegal drugs such as heroin and cocaine, as legal drugs cause less harm to our bodies. So that's the myth. And the reality of that is that legal drugs are more dangerous, they kill many more people. And we will dive into that later on in the video. So that was something that was interesting because we hear about a lot of deaths and a lot of overdoses and of stuff that come from illegal drugs, and we would assume that that's more dangerous, but the stuff that we literally see people consuming into their bodies every single day, such as alcohol and tobacco, etc., that's stuff that really could cause way more harm because it's something that we are ingesting every day. So I thought that was interesting. Let's do one more from those. Given its tougher laws against drug use, the United States has a lower rate of drug use than do most other countries. And the reality of that is the United States has the highest rate of drug use in the world, and the US high school seniors also have the highest rate among their peers in the industrial world. So that's something I thought was interesting. The US, where we are right now, is the highest rate of drug use. So that's something that's a little eye-opening. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the chapter now. So it talks about drug use in perspective. Now connecting this back to the myth, legal drugs have a greater chance of being more dangerous than illegal ones, according to the text. 125 Americans drink alcohol, and 105 million Americans drink alcohol, whereas 62 million are smokers, and 20 million Americans use illegal drugs. Now that is a very big difference from the 125 to the 20. Each year, alcohol and tobacco, those two things kill about 60 times the amount of people that illegal drugs do. Cocaine, meth, heroin, etc., which we will learn. MDMA, blah, blah, blah. So each year, the legal drugs kill 60 times the amount as the illegal drugs do. So that's pretty wild, in my opinion. Now we're going to talk about some illegal drugs and the effects and users. Now, drugs are put into three main categories. There are stimulants, depressants, and hallucinogens. Stimulants are known as uppers, so kind of stuff to stay awake, stuff to keep you alert. And the drugs under that classification are cocaine, crack, caffeine, and nicotine. So cigarettes, tobacco. Depressants, known as downers, stuff to bring you down, make you mellow out, and I guess sleepy. Stuff would be heroin, PCP, morphine, and aspirin. That was actually shocking for me. I had no idea that aspirin was going to be under there, but you learn something new every day. And now the third category would be hallucinogen, which is LSD, MDMA, which is what we know as ecstasy. Now, marijuana is, according to the text, it's placed alone due to the fact that when you ingest marijuana, you can experience any of these three categories. You can experience the stimulants, the depressants, or the hallucinogen. So that's why marijuana is not classified in any of those specifically, just it's kind of in general, it has all those things. So now diving into marijuana, we will talk a little bit more about that. It is the most commonly used drug in the United States. It is derived from the Indian plant called Cannabis sativa. And there are other words known for weed, like AKA, people say grass, pot, dope, and cannabis is known to grow all over the world, but it mainly like the special grade marijuana comes from United States, Mexico, Jamaica, and Thailand, according to the text. In ancient times, it was used as a sacred ritual. You even see in the text, there's a small story of and they say that the Hindu, the hemp plant is holy. And they have a whole ritual where they call it the bhang, Bhang, and the way that they speak about it, you can tell that it's a very intense spiritual ritual for them. So that in ancient times, that was big over there. And today, in modern times, many would argue that it is a hazard and it would cause memory loss, anxiety, increased heart rate, dehydration. Many argue that if one consumes marijuana daily for many, many years, it can cause cancer, it can cause other different diseases that are, of course, horrible for the human body. And they also say that it is a gateway to other drugs, to other tougher, more intense drugs that we will be talking about later on in this chapter. Now, others who are pro-marijuana, I guess, would argue that it relieves nausea. It helps with pain that patients have, AIDS patients have, or cancer patients have, some nausea and pain. It induces sleep. It can help with relaxation. It can also bring on an appetite for those patients who are at a loss of appetite due to the medicines they're being given. So there's definitely two sides to this. Now, according to the text, pot smokers try harder drugs due to the fact that they have friends who are supplying those drugs. It is not marijuana that is the gateway itself. It is more the people who the person is hanging out around that are supplying the more intense drug. That is according to the textbook. Now we will dive into heroin. That sounds bad, but we will dive into the drug heroin and explain more about that. So according to the text, heroin is also known as P-dope. That's new to me. It was first made in 1898 for morphine, and then it was derived from opium in 1803. It can be smoked, it can be sniffed, it can be ingested through the mouth, and also, as we know, injected into the body, which that, according to the text, is a very big possibility to get AIDS from the needle, from the injection. Taking this drug, it causes a rush feeling, an intense sensation to the whole body. The user, according to the text, the user has to learn how to experience it and how to feel it. The first time can be very uncomfortable. There is a small, short story from a girl that tried it with her boyfriend for the first time, and she said that they tried it, they were driving, and she said that she was vomiting for the entire time. But she also says that she would decide to give it another chance. So, I mean, it's very interesting, but yeah, so according to the text, the user has to try it a few times and learn how to deal with the feeling of nausea, because I guess you get that through this drug. The next drug that the text talks about is cocaine and crack. These are also known as coke, snow, toot, according to the text. I never heard of that last one. It is made of cocoa plants grown in Peru and Bolivia. Before it was illegal, it was used to relieve depression and fatigue, so it would make people alert and just up and ready for whatever they had to deal with. It used to be seen in plant medicines and in Coca-Cola, as I'm sure we all know. It was made illegal in the 20th century, and due to the fact that people realized that it was very, very physically addictive and dangerous for the human body. If one is addicted, the withdrawal symptoms are very, very intense and very strong. And according to the text, crack is the cheapest form of cocaine, and it's even more addictive. Moving on to the next drug, which they talk about, ecstasy. Oh no, I just skipped. Sorry, I skipped meth and roofies. So moving on to meth and roofies, also known as speed and crack. During World War II, soldiers would use this to get rid of fatigue for their missions. Today, it is relatively cheap and easily available. Also, very, very highly addictive, and it is mainly common between 18 and 34-year-olds. Now, moving on to the drug ecstasy, which is also known as MDMA. It is very, very common in high school students and college students. Early in the 1970s, it was used by therapists for their patients. Earlier on, there were false rumors about this drug, saying that it caused Parkinson's, but I think that it mentioned that researchers said that that was false. The text mentioned that labs make this drug very, very impure, and it is possible for it to be deadly for some users if they get a batch from the wrong lab, I guess. It says that it can cause the body to overheat, and you must stay hydrated while under the influence of MDMA. Now we're going to move on to the extent of drug use. About 9% of Americans by the age of 12 and up use illicit drugs every year. And young adults by the age of 18 to 25 have the highest rate of drug use. 12 to 17-year-olds have the second highest rate, which is very, very young for the second highest rate. And like I said before, the United States has the lead in the world when it comes to drug use. And teenagers are commonly smoking marijuana, usually starting around 13. And now talking about drugs and crime, the textbook indicates that those who use illegal drugs engage in more crime than those who do not. It says that users who are forced into that life due to the fact that they can't pay for much else with certain drugs. Like heroin, the text says that, due to the fact that they have low income, due to the fact that most likely they are poverty, they get addictive because they end up spending their money on that. That's how addiction works. But we will dive into that later. And now to discuss becoming a drug user. There are 4 stages of drug use, according to the text: experimental, occasional, regular use, and futile use. Heroin users, like I was just saying, are more likely to be in the 4th stage because it is highly addictive. It is very common because the users use it to escape from their reality. Marijuana and cocaine users are commonly stayed in the first 3 stages, and there was a quote in the text that researchers said that students said that they use marijuana and cocaine to have a good time with their friends, not in an addictive and aggressive way. And most people tend to try drugs because they have friends who have previously tried them. And the text mentions 3 stages of drug use, and there's the learning technique to get high, recognizing the different drug effects that your body feels from the drug, and lastly, enjoying the drug. A social profile of illegal drug use. Most drugs users are relatively young, like we said, 18 to 25. Most teenagers use drugs to get out of their parents' control. And users learn to start and use drugs to their parents and peers, pretty much anyone around them who brings it. So if your parent smokes tobacco, smokes cigarettes, it is possible you will want to try cigarettes. If you have friends who are smoking marijuana, it is possible one will want to start trying marijuana. That's what the text is trying to say. So the economic deprivation theory is that drugs fill a need for the status to individuals. There's a quote in the text that someone says that being in the drug culture is just like being a movie star, which is, I can see how they're connected because true. And it also mentions that poverty can make people do desperate things. So that's what I was talking about earlier. When someone is an addict and they are in poverty, it is possible that they will want to give what they have towards that drug and not towards something else. Because in their mentality, that is what's making them feel better. So that's what they want more of. Now, the cognitive association theory explains the drug addiction It says that the cause of the addiction is the user's cognitive association between withdrawal, distress, and the previous drug use. Now, the social psychological theory says that many get used to trying legal drugs, making it extremely easy to trying illegal ones because we get so used to trying things. And researchers say that drug use is due to low self-esteem and self-rejection, etc. Now, the war on drugs, there's two main sections to that. There's the punitive, which is that law enforcement tries to put a stop and punish those who use and sell. We see that every day. We hear it on the news every single day. And then there's the supportive technique, which is offering treatment and demanding that the drug addicts get the help that they need. Raising awareness, going to schools, going to teenagers, talking to them, raising awareness about the drug effects and how bad it can be for the human body. That would be supportive. Now, talking about the historical pattern for a bit. In 1875, it was the first attempt to battle drug use against opium in San Francisco. And that was, according to the text, introduced by Chinese coolies. In 1900, laws against cocaine were placed. And that was, according to the text, mainly used by blacks. In 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act was put in place, and that was known to be smoked by the Mexican migrant workers, according to the text. And in 1950, heroin became illegal, well, obviously, and it was blamed on the communists. Going back to the punitive and supportive strategies, punitive, it dives into that a little bit more later on in the text. The law enforcement's goal was to punish the users and the sellers, not to help them. They aim at foreign and poorer areas rather than the richer and the stable ones, even though both could be potentially using the drugs. And now the supportive strategies is to increase awareness about addiction, promote homes for them to live together to feel safe for recovering addicts. It promotes rehab facilities, drug prevention, which we all know today as DARE, drug treatment facilities, and drug treatment, and then there's two sections that the text discusses, and it's chemical treatments and then detoxifying and maintenance therapy for addicts. Now, coming to an end, we are going to talk a little bit about cigarettes. Cigarettes are much more dangerous over time than illegal drugs. In 1964, it was first announced that smoking led to lung cancer. And today, 27% of the United States over the age of 12 smoke cigarettes. And the global perspective on smoking is that since the 1960s, it's become less common in the US, which is great. And it becomes way more common in Europe, which is not great. And most people become smokers before they reach adulthood, which is very insane, but it's something that is definitely eye-opening and good to learn about. And yeah, this text pretty much comes to a close over there. I'll go ahead and give you guys one more myth and reality because I thought those were really interesting. Drug use causes crime so this is a myth, by the way. Drug use causes crime as indicated by the fact that many poor drug users are forced to rob or steal to get the money for their next fix. Reality is, drug use does not necessarily cause crime because most drug users with a criminal record have started committing crimes before the drugs. So this chapter I thought was very interesting and very eye-opening, and I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Have a good day.